All right, here we go with the second video on inflation. This is about winners and losers, who gains from inflation when it's not expected. That's the key here, okay? So, important note here is that when inflation occurs and it's unexpected, there's a transfer of wealth from lenders, people that lend out money, to people that have borrowed money, okay? And the opposite works as well. So if inflation is lower than thought, if we thought that there would be 10% inflation this coming year, it turns out there's only 5% inflation, then there's going to be a transfer of wealth from people who borrow money to those who lent money, okay? And so let me show you how this works in terms of an illustration. So let's say that you borrow $10 from me. So I'm going to lend you $10, and we're going to make a deal that in 1 year you're going to pay me back $10. So I'm a nice guy. I'm just going to lend you $10. You give me back $10 in a year. We'll be square. Okay, let's think about $10 not in terms of money, but let's think about it in terms of what it can buy. So at the time, right now, if I lend you $10 at this time, that's equivalent to 10 sodas at McDonald's. So you've borrowed $10 from me, but you could also say you've borrowed 10 sodas from me. But let's say during the course of this year there is inflation occurs, and we didn't think there'd be inflation, but there is. And by the time 1 year comes around, next year, the price of a McDonald's soda has gone to $2. So there's been 100% inflation. 1 to 2 is a 100% increase. So inflation occurred and it was very high and we didn't expect that. So then when you come to me and you pay the $10 back that you owe me, you'll really have only paid me 5 sodas. So yes, you paid me back the loan, we're square on the deal, but in one sense I lent you $10 and I got back $10. In another sense I lent you 10 sodas and I only got back 5 sodas. So because of that inflation that occurred right there, you, the borrower, basically received 5 free sodas, and I, the lender, lost 5 sodas. So in real terms, I'm worse off. But in nominal terms, nominal meaning the $10, nothing happened. There was no nominal change. I lent you 10, I got back 10. But in real terms, I lent you 10 sodas, and I got back only 5 sodas. Okay. So inflation in this case allowed you to pay back dollars to me that were worth less than the dollars you borrowed from me. The dollars you borrowed from me were worth 1 soda per dollar, and then you pay me back dollars that are actually only worth half a soda per dollar. So inflation makes money lose value. So that means if you borrow money and then there's inflation, when you pay back the loan, you have essentially received a little bit of wealth from that loan because you're not paying back as much as you borrowed. Now, if there's deflation, if prices go down, the opposite is true. When prices go down, dollars become worth more. And so when you pay back the loan, the dollars you pay me back would be worth more than the dollars I lent you. So just really remember that unexpected inflation, so the key is about unexpected, I'll tell you why in a second. Unexpected inflation helps borrowers and it hurts lenders. Okay, really important you remember that. Okay, so what could I do to protect myself when I lend you money for a year? Well, I probably would want to charge you interest. You've heard of this. Certainly when you borrow money or you lend money, interest is typically charged. Interest in economics, interest is the price you pay to borrow money. It's the price of borrowed money. So if I'm going to let you borrow my money, I'm going to charge you interest. I'm going to charge you a price. It's like a service. I'm giving you a service. I'm letting you use my money for a year. It's like a service, and you should pay a price for that, just like if I cut your lawn, you should pay me some money for that. And if you expect me to cut your lawn, you should expect to pay me money. And if you expect to borrow my money, you should expect to pay me some money for that. So that's what interest is. It's a price. And really, honestly, if you think about interest rates as a price of borrowed money, you're totally going to be better off in this class. So every time you hear interest rate, think the price of borrowed money. Really important. Okay. There's 2 reasons why I might charge you interest, or why a bank would charge interest if they're going to lend out. The first is because if I lend you my money, I don't have it. It's an inconvenience for me. In the economic sense, if I lend you my money, then I can't go out and invest my money in other things. I can't use my money to make other stuff because you have it. So I should basically be compensated for not having access to my money while you're borrowing it. So I should charge you some interest. Basically, you're paying the price of inconveniencing me. You're compensating me for the inconvenience. The second reason is simply to protect against inflation. So let's say that I lent you $10 and I knew, and you knew, everybody, not know, you can't know the future, but we believe, let's say that. You believe that over the next year the price of Coca-Cola is going to go up 100%. You believe the price of everything is going to go up 100%. So when I lend you the $10, if I'm a good guy, I shouldn't expect back only $10. That would be a really good guy. That would mean you're basically taking advantage of me, or I'm giving you a gift in the form of 5 free sodas. So if I lend you $10 and we all believe that soda's going to double in price and everything's going to double in price, then really you should pay me back twice as much money, right? I should give you 10 and you should give me back 20, because a year from now, $20 will still buy 10 Cokes, and right now $10 buys 10 Cokes. So that would be a square deal where really I'm not charging you an additional price. You just give me back what you borrowed from me. Okay? So that would be a basic interest rate. But then you're not paying me for the inconvenience of not having my money. So I'm out $10, so you should give me a little something extra. So maybe give me $21 back, or something like that. So these two interests, reasons we should say for charging interest, come together to form what's called the nominal interest rate. So maybe I give you $10 and I say, I'll lend you $10, but I'm going to charge you 120% interest. So you're going to give me back 120% on top of the $10. So you're going to give me back $12 plus the 10 you owe me. So I lend you 10, you give me back 10, plus you owe me 12 more. So really you're going to pay me back $22 for the 10 I've given you. That's the nominal interest rate. Okay? That's the interest rate we agree to, 120% interest. All right. But the real interest rate, or you might say my profit in a way off of this deal, that's the interest after you subtract inflation from the nominal rate. It represents the true cost to you of borrowing and the true profit to me of lending. Okay? So let's use an example that might be more realistic than $10 from me. Say you're going to borrow $10,000 for your first year of college, and let's assume that the bank expects that inflation is going to be 3% per year. Okay? Then they need to charge you at least 3% interest just to break even. That's if they're not going to earn any profit at all. And that's simply because we can now express this relationship, very critically important, that real interest rates, the real price being paid to borrow money, or the real profit earned when you let somebody else use your money, is equal to the nominal rate, the amount that you actually charge them, minus the rate of inflation. So if a lender lent you $10,000 at 3% nominal interest rate, and they expected and you expected the inflation rate to be 3%, then they're doing you a real favor. They're basically lending you money for free. They're not expecting to get back anything more than what they lent you in terms of its purchasing power. So prices are going to go up 3%. You're going to pay them back 3% more. And at the end of the year, they'll be able to purchase with the money you pay them back exactly what they could purchase now with the money they're lending you. Okay, so 3% nominal interest rate minus the 3% rate of inflation equals 0 real interest. Okay, but they're going to have to charge you more than 3% if they wish to earn a profit. So anything above 3% is them factoring in a profit for themselves. Okay, so if the bank charges you, say, 5%, if that's the rate you have to pay, then it is expecting to earn 2% real interest, and that's because 5% nominal interest rate minus their expected rate of inflation of 3% means that they expect the real interest rate to be 2%. So they basically are saying, we're going to earn 2% real profit on this deal. Even though you're going to pay them back 5% more dollars, 3% of that 5% is due to inflation, so the remainder is just you paying them some form of profit. But what happens if inflation is only 1%? Like, what if inflation's lower than thought? So think for a second. Earlier we said if inflation is higher than expected, people who borrow money sort of win. But if inflation is lower than expected, right? We expected it to be 3%, but it's only 1%, because we don't know what the future is going to be. So that's what it actually turns out to be, let's say. Well, in that case, this was a pretty good deal for the bank. The bank lent you at 5%. The actual rate of inflation came in lower than thought, and that means the real rate of interest turns out to be higher than thought. And that means that the bank sort of wins, the lender wins in that case, and you end up paying back more in interest than you thought you would, okay? So the real interest rate is really what matters. The nominal interest rate is the amount of dollars being exchanged, but the real interest rate is the after inflation profit in this case. All right. So we got one more video coming, and that's going to be about the calculation of inflation. Look forward to it.